Nelson Mandela once said that if you speak to a man in a language that he understands, that goes to his head. If you speak to a person in their language, that goes to their heart. We communicate in a plethora of different ways. Aside from talking, texting, reading, we use art, music, and dance to convey emotion to another human being. We use language to do essentially everything, from making a first impression and introducing yourself, hi, my name is Sara Shikooh, to creating an identity and giving people something to connect to. I am a 16-year-old high school student. Today, I hope you'll take away a very simple message from this talk. Language is the very essence of progress and humanity. Words are a kind of magic. Each one conveys a lot of meaning, and strung together, they can make wonderful things. I used to say that if I wanted to do anything, I wanted to make people feel things when they read the words that I put down on a page. I wouldn't say that my goal has changed, but I can say with confidence that it has definitely broadened. I realize now that putting them down on a page does not make them any more important than when I speak them out loud. I'm sure you will agree with me when I say that the way we communicate has definitely changed over the years. A good example would be the comparison between today's slang and the slang used back when polio was an immediate threat. How many people here know what I mean when I say Shakespeare was the OG GOAT? Look around at the hands raised. Paints a pretty accurate picture that things have definitely changed from the way that they were. Aside from a generation gap, there's a lot more to evaluate when we talk about the fluidity of language and its capability to change. The definition itself is a system of communication, and by God, do we take advantage of how vague that is. On Google, when you type in the words, the language of, the first few suggestions are as follows. The language of flowers, the language of thorns, the language of kindness, of love, the language of God, and the language of science. Notice how none of these are real languages like French, English, or Arabic. What could the language of flowers possibly be? Words, as wonderful as they are, they're not always necessary when we want to express ourselves. And that's the pliancy of language. From era to era, cause to cause, country to country, one thing that finds its base in fluidity and capability to change is language. Words, while they're wonderful, they serve as a front man to a cause far deeper than we really care to acknowledge. What creates that sense of clarity and connection comes from the meaning behind the things that we see and hear. The end result is the easiest thing that we've put together. So, spoken language, it's vital, definitely. If it wasn't, I don't think I would be doing a TED Talk. But the words that I say, they're shells of their meaning. Everything carries its own fair share of weight, which impacts you all the same way, yet it's received differently. The end result is the simplest explanation that your mind has put together. That being said, how can we ever really be sure what someone is trying to put out there? To put it shortly, we can't. But we can go through a process of elimination. Body language, colors, sound, linguistic elements, tones. Essentially the same method that you would use to distinguish sarcasm from being serious, or figuring out the genre of a movie based off its cinematography. Let's talk about the language of flowers. Lavender for deception, yellow roses for friendship, pink for appreciation. Did you know that almost all flowers have meanings? Baby's breath for innocence, go figure. Interestingly enough, most of these meanings come from cultural stories. Red tulips, for example, they mean true or perfect love because that's what the Turkish decided it should. Now, I'm not Turkish. I don't speak Turkish either. But I do know what the concept of true or perfect love is. And I do know what a red tulip looks like. So there's another bridge built. Similarly, there's a language of mathematics. The meanings behind dots and dashes, the value of numbers, putting a symbol somewhere to represent simplifying an equation, making things less complicated, basically. If numbers can do it, flowers can do it, so can color. But so can Greek, Latin, Arabic, Urdu, Portuguese, computer coding, sigils, symbols, drawings, and even posture. Language is the tie into understanding, acceptance, and achievement. Anything with meaning can end up a language. The sooner that we realize the importance communication has in our lives, the sooner that we will understand that there are multiple more forms of expression than we originally believed. This intricacy of dialect, this visual implication, this emotion, all comes under the explanation, a system of communication. It seems to be changing into anything and everything, twisting and curving almost as if it were a sentient being, allowing us to alter it to benefit a context that we need it to. It's pretty selfless. Now, I am definitely proud to say that there are definitely people who have acknowledged this in a academic standpoint, from a historic standpoint as well, but also in a way that's sure to make us laugh. So, here's this slide. Take a minute to read it, please. Now, what's funny about that is that it's essentially the gist of my entire TED Talk without a cool quote and a cry for attention. So go through it and look. While we're here, how about I take you through how our generation has taken memes, has taken puns, play on words, and made them absolutely hilarious. There's this one where we kind of see how important it is to clarify the duality of words, different significance and meanings in general. There's these two, which by the way are extremely strange, so take a minute to just understand them. It's taking something incredibly simple and rephrasing it entirely. Makes me really uncomfortable, by the way. Read this one. Of course, there's no single universally understood language. Culture, norms, values, beliefs, all these things impact the way that we take things in and the way that we put them out. There's also the issue of something called the language barrier, where one person can't communicate with another because they do not speak the same language. Take note that I say speak, not know, because who's to say that these people do not know the language of anger, or the language of happiness, or the language of love? We as a human race, we tend to skim the surface. Take what we can get easily and leave it at that. If you can't explain to me what you mean explicitly, then it doesn't matter. Language barrier, a wall between person to person. Picture a world where physical walls erupted between people that couldn't talk to each other. It sounds like a prison. I picture it as a prison. It could potentially also be a really intricate maze, but that's a different story. With a world cut up like that, what good could possibly come of it? Having barriers is for important things, like keeping food separate on a plate, or keeping water from a sandcastle. We are all so conditioned into shallowness that we create reasons not to talk to each other. Language is something that isn't, shouldn't, and cannot be contained. It will never be final, and it will never be complete. So, what? What do you do with that? What are you going to do about the fact that in a few years, maybe you'll never hear the word yeet again? Well, I'll tell you. It's kind of simple. Look around. Can you see anyone wearing your favorite color? Take a moment, just look around. Okay. It might not be their favorite color, but something similar inspired them to wear it today. Okay? Suddenly, the entire room just feels a little bit more closer. Let's look at something else. How many people here do you think have experienced heartbreak? Regardless of the reasons, of the emotions, anything. Suddenly, the entire room feels a little bit closer. It's these connections, these experiences, and these emotions that show us so much about the people around us, and none of you have said a word. Is this not a sort of language? Let's think bigger. On this planet, how many songs do you think you share with other people? How many people share your favorite song? Suddenly, the entire world feels a little bit closer. How many people do you think share your favorite book? Suddenly, the entire world gets a little bit closer. This is how you learn to stay connected. This is how you learn that you're not alone and that your burdens are shared. Your happiness is shared. Your anger, your love, shared. Via words or not, there are groups of people out there that speak your language. Not English, Farsi, French, but a language that you share with them and only them. Speak to someone in a language that they understand, and that'll go to their head. Speak to someone with their viewpoint, with their language, a shared journey, a mutual experience, any tied emotion, and that resonates in their heart. This is how you eliminate barriers. This is how you make the world whole. Thank you.